Welcome school children and everyone else who's watching this session on STEM Talks. Only 28% of our workforce in science, technology, engineering, and maths, STEM, is represented by women. This gender gap is unusually high in the most sought after jobs of the future, like computer sciences, engineering, and science overall. In this heavily male-dominated field, one stellar gem, a girl who's pursuing STEM, shines bright. Yes, she has been advocating and taking direct action to narrow this gender gap, enhance women access to STEM, and promote diverse and talented STEM workforce to prevent bias in the field. Dr. Pialy Ghanekar, founder, Cell Savvy Group, is a science communicator and a scientific consultant. Dr. Pialy, welcome to the STEM Talks series. How are you? Please tell us a little about Cell Savvy.
Thank you. Thank you for the introduction, Mr. Verma. So basically, Cell Savvy is my brand new venture, I would say. And this is a place where our endeavor is to facilitate the process of bringing scientific research out of the laboratory, out of the science community into the public domain. So Cell Savvy was basically born out of my own passion to understand science and to make scientific findings accessible to the society in a very easy to comprehend manner. Now, I'll just tell you a little bit about the name. Cells are very fundamental to life, and so is science, right? And the impact of science on several aspects of our life is just undeniable. So the name Cell Savvy is basically a community. It stands for a community that understands science and supports scientific knowledge and its significance in day-to-day life. So that's about Cell Savvy.
Excellent, excellent. Thank you so much for telling us about Cell Savvy. So diving straight into my first question, what are you tinkering with these days?
Of course, my brand new venture, Cell Savvy, that I spoke about. It is like a baby and it requires all the care and love possible at this stage. So yeah, it's everything. It's posting on the community. We are actually trying to establish two fronts. One, wherein we have an academy and we are teaching students and the youth to kind of understand science communication and do it. And the other part of it, wherein we are helping researchers communicate their science to the world. So this, and in addition to this, of course, the social media, wherein we are trying to sort of translate this whole platform into something that we can disseminate more.
Right. Excellent. Excellent. It seems like there is a lot of hard work and a lot of reading that you must be doing to, address all of these challenges and to go forth and put your message across. So which book are you reading these days? Our student viewers would be interested in knowing and reading it up themselves.
You rightly said, books have been my holy grail for the longest time. And right now I am obsessing over two books. One is The Imposture Phenomenon, which is written by Dr. Pauline Rose Clance. And she, along with her colleague, way back in 1974, identified this phenomenon in a clinical setting and coined the term. The second book is Eats, Shoots, and Leaves by Lion Truce. And this is a wonderful read. It's a fun read it's a book about punctuations. How the improper use of punctuations can be so frustrating. And who would have thought there's an entire book on punctuations? And it's a fun read. It's an absolute fun read. So yeah, that's.
I'm sure, but all reading and no work makes everyone dull. So what do you have to say about hands-on training for the young ones who are tuned into this series?
Okay, so hands-on training is indispensable, to say the least. Now, I will just, explain this with a very personal anecdote. So I have graduated in biochemistry and done my master's in biophysics. Now, my choice of subjects was aligned with my ultimate goal of eventually getting into research in the fields of infectious diseases and immunology. When I appeared for my PhD entrance test, there was this 15 marks question on the technique of Western blotting. It's the technique you use to detect proteins. So I had, of course, my graduation, post-graduation subjects, and I was determined to crack the exam. So I wrote one long answer, very, very detailed. I even took supplements for it. So I cracked the exam. I managed to get into a choice program. I got a fantastic guide and everything was good. It so happened that a large chunk of my research work was Western blotting. So I was very confident that I know everything that is to know about the subject. And I did. The problem was I knew everything in theory. So when I stood in front of the apparatus, I was stumped. I was stupefied. When I had to actually standardize the technique, it seemed as if that apparatus was mocking me, challenging me. And of course, needless to say, I took some time to revive from the shock. And during this time, I was just poring over the user manual, reading technical aspects and everything. And I did dry runs of the apparatus and all of that. Came back, I was a little more confident, did a lot of failed runs. Finally, I had my Western blot in front of me, my successful one, first successful one. That was my epiphany moment. Had I not done that hands-on training, had I not done the hands-on work, I would never really know the technique. I would just live in the happy ignorance that, oh yeah, I know Western blotting. So hands-on training is the only way that you can apply the theory to real life. You know the application. So yeah, this is the best way I could have explained this.
Absolutely. Thank you for opening up and sharing such an important episode of your life. For a lot of us, our young viewers who come across these challenges, although they've read it in their books, in their course curriculum, but without doing it by their hand, they're unable to figure out, what the next steps are. Moving on to the next question, Doctor, we would want to know what are some of the myths and misconceptions that you've heard from students that you interact with about STEM education?
Okay, so the most common one is that if you specialize in a niche area of biology, you can just get rid of mathematics and physics. Nothing can be further from the truth. Trust me on this. Although subjects are, divided for easier categorization, in reality, the margins are very, very blurred. Nature does not really divide phenomena based on subjects, right? So therefore, the interdependency of the subjects is inevitable. You can't avoid it. How would you explain your research results, your biology research results without statistics? And statistics kya hai? It's mathematics. So you can't really do without it, right? So yeah, I think.
So, you've pursued academics, to make a career out of it. And it's really inspiring. And while doing so, I'm sure, there would be a lot of areas that you would have to self-learn because, of various challenges, students face. So what is that one subject that you've done through self-learning?
Okay, like I mentioned, Western blotting, of course, the technique and the nuances of science communication, these two for sure. Books have been my holy grail along the whole thing. And nowadays, self-learning is very accessible. So it's literally at the tip of your fingers. I would just take a moment here to just mention one very important point. It's today, although accessibility is there, but it's very important to be careful of these courses or these platforms which claim to do something just on the basis of the fact that they will give you a certificate. If there is valuable content, go in for it. But your degrees are sufficient. If you're upskilling yourself, do not invest unless you are very, very sure of it. So that is something very important. Other than the nerdy stuff, I've also self-learned the art of quilling, baking, and cooking. And these are like my stress busters. I can't do without them.
Excellent.
So yeah.
Right. So tell me, you mentioned that, there are a lot of upskilling opportunities now than there were, let's say, 5 years ago. So while upskilling, which career choices should students keep in mind when they pursue, when they upgrade themselves or, learn something new? Which career choices do you see coming up in the next 5-10 years?
So one of the most important endeavors at Cell Savvy that we pursue has been to help students figure out STEM careers which are at the intersection of their aptitude and interest, right? So even outside the conventional tenure track positions, which will lead you in the laboratory and the classrooms, there are endless possibilities. To name just a few here, communication and outreach, okay, wherein you can be a scientific writer, you can be a journalist, a museum education officer, science event manager, public relations officer. In publishing, journals, books, etc., consultancy, you can have your own consultancy, be your own boss, or you can get into recruitment consultancy, higher education careers advisor, research funding and administration is there. The ones who are have interest in law can go in for patent attorney, patent examiner, trademark attorney, science policy, and the lobbyist. Manufacturing and production is there, where you can be the health safety inspector, product process development scientist, you can be a quality manager, or even a nuclear engineer. Technical sales is there, and of course, data science and analysis. So, but again, a very, very, nowadays, very vulnerable field. Everybody is marketing data science and analysis, and it runs into lakhs. So wise investment is very, very important in any of this. So, yeah.
Right. Absolutely. I mean, it's a very comprehensive response that you've shared with us, and I'm sure our viewers would have to pause in between to take notes on all of these career choices that you've just mentioned. And there are a lot which may seem confusing, but like you mentioned earlier, they have all the students have to look at their strengths and then look at integration of what they're doing with the choices that they make. Right. So tell me, Dr. What you mentioned, quilling is something that you do and reading is something that you do. So are these the hobbies that help you in building up your problem solving stamina?
For problem solving stamina, it is baking, hands down baking. See, there are two reasons for it. Firstly, baking requires that you follow a particular set of instructions to the T, and thereby it trains your mind to think in a stepwise and logical manner. Secondly, despite following all the instructions to the T, you will still not get the outcome that you expected. There'll definitely be that one element which will make the difference, either in a good way or a bad way. But finding that one element is akin to finding a needle in the haystack. And that trains you to troubleshoot and deal with all the curveballs that life can throw at you. That's how I see it. There is no cut, copy, paste in life, right? The same thing that works for one person will definitely not work for another one. So, and that's where your troubleshooting prowess will show in. So, I mean, hands down baking, definitely.
Right. So, it's so interesting that you related baking, logic, and, step-by-step maneuvering. That brings me to my next question. Which is your favorite equation, formula, or quote? Because all of them are, in sync with logic, reasoning, and the next steps that we can take.
I have believed in this quote for at least about 15 years now, I would say. And it is a quote by Aristotle. It is passion in the job puts perfection in the work. It's very simple. If you love what you do, you will love doing it. And when you do something because you love doing it, the results are bound to be amazing. There is no other way, right? So yeah, that's the favorite quote for sure.
Excellent. And which is your favorite STEAM subject and why?
So narrowed down, I would definitely say it is the science of infectious diseases. Microorganisms have been around for really long, way before we existed, right? And their survival mechanisms and strategies are so intriguing. Even though we know a lot now, so much is still there that is beyond our comprehension. The several forms of human microorganism interactions, whether they are symbiotic or pathogenic, always leave me awestruck. In addition, the influence of our immune responses on these interactions takes it to a whole different level of being enticing. So yeah.
Yeah, excellent, excellent. I mean, and this is such a trending subject right now, with the whole world focused on public health, infectious diseases, and this entire campaign, ongoing campaign to improve, a standard of living by overcoming health challenges, especially posed by infectious diseases, is a brilliant cause that the whole world is right now invested in. And hats off to all the warriors from various fields, including those who are communicating these science findings and challenges that are coming up to the community. Absolutely. Dr. Pialy, tell me, to our students, which would be some of those websites or some resources that they can go to and look up for more about the subjects that you've spoken about, to become more acquainted to the subjects that you've spoken about.
Yeah. So, there are these three websites that I would like to highlight here. They have their own attributes, and these are fun to do, So like there is Bill Nye, the science guy. So he has these amazing shows and documentaries, which are really, really good to watch and very, very de-stressing. Also, he has some nice home demos if you want to try out, some experiments and all. Then there is Science Bob. Now again, it is, all these schools and colleges want you to have build your own experiments or science fair projects. And this website gives some amazing ideas for those with step-by-step instructions. So what more could you really ask for, right? And there is this one holy grail for people who love engineering, Discover E. So it is engineering resources and hands-on activities. So yeah, these three definitely really, really good.
Thank you. Thank you. Because, it's not just the interviews that inspire young ones. They also want to explore more. We'll be posting links to these three websites in the description. On to our final question, and the most important one, because pursuing STEM and STEAM subjects always, builds up a lot of stress in our students and, fear of failure. So please, if you could, tell us, how do you deal with failure?
I don't identify with anything as failure. So it's very simple. When you don't acknowledge the existence of something, it doesn't exist for you. So when I am at something, I will give it my best. I'll give it whatever I can. Now, irrespective of how it works out, it will always be a great learning experience, and it will be a step ahead in the journey for sure. Labeling something as failure indicates to our brain that we need to cast the experiences and the journey of the process aside and start fresh. But why start from scratch when you already have invested something in something so much and you have something to build up on, right? So every time that you succeed. But every time that you quote unquote fail, it is not failure. It is just taking you towards the next success. So I don't identify anything as failure. So yeah.
Very, very well said. Very well said, Dr. Pialy. I truly believe that the STEM community is doing something together to make this world a better place. It is an evolving community which does not fear failure and rather takes it as something to build on, like you rightly mentioned. Our efforts will make sure that the best talent is available to serve our great country, this world, and even other planets. I thank you, Dr. Pialy, for sparing time today to talk STEM with us.